What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Coin Brief Podcast, episode 31. We are your hosts, Evan Faggart and Dustin O'Brien, and we're going to talk about some interesting news stories that happened throughout the week since our last show. And we're going to get started with the super big news that everyone's talking about. Coinbase, they launched their regulated Bitcoin exchange, which they're marketing as the first regulated Bitcoin exchange in the US. And this comes on the heels of their record-breaking VC funding round, where they raised $75 million, I think, which is the most any Bitcoin company's ever raised. And now they're opening this exchange, and they're authorized to operate in like 20 something states. There's like,
I think they announced 25, I believe, and they were licensed in 18 or so.
Yeah, and the rest of them just like didn't. The rest of them just like doesn't have Bitcoin specific regulation yet or something. So it's like an in between.
Well, a lot of the ones that are left do still have regulations or require licensing, but they just haven't been approved yet, or those states just are not approving Bitcoin-based companies yet, or still, everyone that has applied basically is just waiting for a response.
Right.
And then some of them they haven't gotten their licensing for yet. But yeah, so I mean, I believe it was 18. They might have bumped that up because I saw that they added another. But 18 they were licensed in, and then like 7 or 8 that they didn't require licensing for them.
So, what exactly does this mean for Bitcoin?
Well, in my opinion, like, the fact that it's Coinbase doing it and they have so many users is really important. It's going to have a pretty big impact. The fact that they're licensed doesn't really matter, in my opinion. It's not a big selling point on it. I don't like the fact that they're saying that they're the first regulated Bitcoin exchange, because that's just simply not true. There were other ones before them that launched that are regulated and have the proper licensing. We were talking about this earlier. CoinX is one of them that, while they might be small, they don't really have a whole lot of orders on the books. They technically are a fully functional exchange at this point, and they're licensed in over 30 states. And yeah, I mean, they were launched way before Coinbase had an exchange even ready to launch. They started years ago. So yeah, I don't like the way they're wording it, but I think it's going to be important. I think it's going to.
Dude, Coinbase is definitely the biggest. There's no doubt about that, or the biggest regulated one. I don't know. Is Bitstamp bigger than Coin? Well, they're not exactly the same, but
well,
I mean,
there are big exchanges.
Yeah, like I think Bitstamp is one of the biggest, and with Coinbase's the original Coinbase service wasn't a full exchange, but this is a full exchange, so they're probably going to be pretty close, if not bigger than Bitstamp. I don't know, but it's definitely significant because the a whole lot of people they say, oh well, I would buy Bitcoin and use Bitcoin in my business. I would make my business accept it if there was just some kind of regulation, because it's not safe, or I don't know, it could be banned tomorrow or something. So the fact that there's a quote unquote regulated exchange now that's protected by all the traditional financial rules and stuff, it adds legitimacy to Bitcoin. I don't really like I don't really like saying that Bitcoin needs to be more legitimate. I don't like saying that regulation makes it more legitimate because I don't agree with that. But that's how a lot of people feel about it.
Yeah.
So maybe so that might bring more mainstream and people in, more people who are used to trading on like stocks and bonds and stuff. They might get into Bitcoin now because there's some more regulatory clarity. Like I said, I think regulatory clarity will in 2015 will be something that does drive adoption because people do think that way. They think stuff does have to be regulated to be useful and safe. So that could definitely be a factor. But also, uh, given what you said about them not being totally truthful in their marketing when they say they're the first regulated Bitcoin exchange, they're obviously using the fact that they're regulated as a marketing tool because they're saying they're the first one. Bitcoin is officially safe now. And so what that kind of makes me worry about a little bit, me being a filthy, dirty libertarian, is that maybe since they're marketing pushing this whole regulated aspect, maybe they're going to use their status as a licensed business to like push out some of the other competition, try
Mm.
to get them off the market by getting the state governments to enforce these uh, licensure laws upon them just so they can increase their market share, which is what, all regulation does really.
Uh,
But do you think that's like would you agree with that? Do you think that would be like a legitimate worry? Would Coinbase do something like that?
well, I mean, I think they are using it like that. They're using it as a marketing ploy to try to, get even bigger than they already are. They've just got $75 million in investment, so they're ready to grow basically right now. They want to get bigger, and they probably have a lot of pressure from their investors to do so, and to really push this forward. Uh, Now, I don't think they're really going to take over Bitcoin exchange world because you were mentioning Bitstamp, which used to be like the biggest exchange at one time. After Gox was at one point, and then when Gox started going downhill, Bitstamp overtook Gox. But around that same time, the Chinese exchanges started growing. And at this point, I'm looking at Bitcoin charts right now. In the last 30 days, by currency, 27% was in USD. Very small amount. That's not listed. I guess it'd be, another 3% or so was in euros. 71% was in Chinese yen. So the USD exchanges really aren't doing most of the volume. It's the Chinese ones, like BTC in China is doing 44% of the total exchange volume. OKCoin, which is also a Chinese one, is doing 27%. And then the first one denominated in USD comes up, Bitfinex at 15%, and Bitstamp at 6%.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of in the U.S. Bitcoin industry, not necessarily
Yeah.
globally. Like, is Coinbase? Do you think they're aggressive enough to use these regulations and say, hey, this exchange isn't compliant like we are. You should enforce them. You should enforce these regulations on them and kick them out of the state and reward us for for jumping through all the hoops and making us the only one. I could see that happening because that's what all big businesses do. I mean, they take advantage of the regulation to push out the competition.
I'm sure they'll try. And they might have success with exchanges that are based in the U.S. Um, I don't think they'll have a whole lot of success with ones that aren't based in the U.S. because it's a little bit harder then to. I mean, the individual states can try to stop any transactions for going to and coming from that exchange, but they've tried that in the past and it hasn't really worked out so well.
Yeah, and like you said, the international or the foreign exchanges aren't really even dealing in USD anyways. They're dealing in their local currencies mostly.
Well, I mean, Bitstamp's based in. They're now. I mean, I think they're now headquartered in the UK, but they were originally in. I don't even
They're
remember where.
Slovenian.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, Slovenian originally.
Yeah, well, I mean the
BTC is
Chinese ones. You said those were
the
currently
biggest.
the biggest ones, and they're mostly in what is it? What is their currency? The yuan, whatever.
It's just pronounced yen like the Japanese. It's
Oh,
just the
it's
Chinese
yen.
yen.
Oh, I've
Yeah,
always said yuan.
yeah, it looks like that, but
Been saying it wrong.
yeah, yeah. I think Bitfinex is really the one that they'll really have to try to come down on. I don't even know if Bitfinex is based in the U.S., but I believe it is. I think it was the biggest U.S. based exchange, but let's see. Yeah, it doesn't really say very quickly here. But that is really who they need to. If they're going to try to take somebody down, that would be the one to go for. But they'll have to build a lot of features to really take out Bitfinex. Because Bitfinex's draw is not that they're a Bitcoin exchange; it's that they have all sorts of other really interesting features. Margin trading and stuff like that. They're the most fleshed out exchange.
But another kind of interesting aspect, I guess you could say, is something to think about. Maybe the Coinbase exchange might not really be that successful because I think the bulk of their business for their you know original service came mainly from payment processing, not necessarily uh, exchange services, because they didn't really have a full exchange. It was kind of like a halfway weird thing. So they might not even be that dominant because people might prefer another exchange's services over the new Coinbase exchange.
I don't think that'll be true. I think they will be pretty big because that they do a lot of payment processing, but they actually have a huge user base. They have a very, very large, like, individual customer user base, not just companies. Like, I believe BitPay is larger than them when it comes to dealing with merchants, and is more set up to handle merchants easier, uh, more efficiently than Coinbase is. But Coinbase, because they've been offering an online wallet for so long, on top of the ability to use them for and as an exchange, kind of, to Coinbase and from Coinbase, they've built up a really, really large user base doing that, and that user base will switch over to this exchange.
I currently use Coinbase to sell my Bitcoin, and I really don't know if I'm gonna switch over to their exchange. I might go to Circle.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Uh,
because I they started they've changed their terms of service. Coinbase has, and
mhm.
a big thing. I I guess they're doing it, or they did it in anticipation of having this fully compliant exchange. Uh, they they have to access things like your credit history and stuff. And I don't know if there are any exchanges that don't violate your privacy like that, but I would look for one that doesn't before I just immediately switched over to Coinbase. So I don't know if I'm personally gonna switch over, but I'm sure you're right. I'm sure most people who currently use Coinbase for wallet services and buying and selling purposes will probably switch over.
Yeah, according to their own figures, which you can never know how accurate they are, they have 2.2 million consumer wallets, not merchant wallets. Um, and those aren't all in the U.S. They also say they have 19 countries fully supported, but in the U.S. right now, I believe is the only thing that the exchange is supporting. But I'm pretty sure the majority of those are in the U.S. So out of that 2.2 million, however many are in the U.S. and are in the states that they do support, we'll probably have a large amount of those go into their exchange. I mean, it's not like an exchange really needs to have even close to that kind of user base to be successful.
Right. That
Um,
That number kind of worries me though, because I hope those 2 million wallets aren't using it to as their primary method of storage, because that's really unsafe. I've said on this podcast several times that it's just the worst idea in the world to use an online wallet to keep most of your coins. That's not what those 2 million people are doing.
Yeah, I'd probably not. I mean, even if they have 2.2 million wallets, I'm willing to bet a whole lot of those wallets are empty or have like, just dust in them, um, or use, basically to as, temporary storage whenever they're purchasing something. And I believe they also offer a way to use a multi-signature wallet for storing coins. I think it's the Vault, if I remember correctly, where no one could really take anything off there without having, not just the key that's stored on Coinbase, but also one of the ones that you own.
Yeah, I think they actually had to like stop their vault thing or something, and to make up for it or replace it, they implemented multi-sig.
Well, I mean, I think that is it's still called the Vault. Um,
Oh, I just remember reading somewhere that they had to stop the vault storage, but I don't know. I might have been reading about another company.
yeah, here we go. Yeah, the Coinbase Vault, it's still there, and it needs multiple approvers, multi-signature, basically. Um,
Okay.
so if you set it up with multi-sig, I mean, that actually is a safe way to use an online wallet, basically. If it's a multi-signature wallet, you have say, two of three keys, then it's effectively an offline wallet that is also online, kind of. I don't know. But it's also a little not really necessary.
All right. So, have we talked about Coinbase enough? You want to go on to the next topic?
Yeah, let's go on to
Okay.
this one.
So, we're going to be talking about another exchange.
Soon
They
to be.
Coinbase kind of stole this exchange's thunder, but the famous or infamous, depending on your opinion, Winklevoss twins are planning what they're marketing as a fully regulated Bitcoin exchange that will be uh, based out of and operated from New York City. And they were when did they announce this? January 23rd is when the CoinDesk article was published, and it was a big deal. It's called Gemini, the exchange, and it was a fully regulated U.S. Bitcoin exchange, and they, similar to Coinbase, they're kind of throwing around the idea that they were the first one, but Coinbase actually beat them to the launch, so I don't know what they're going to do now. But it's based in New York, like I said, to create the feeling of
Legitimacy.
legitimacy, being
Yeah.
super official or whatever, because New York is like the financial center of the world, pretty much. It's where New York Stock Exchange is, and all the great Wall Street guys who are filthy rich. And they're aiming the Winklevi or said that they're actually aiming their services at more mainstream institutional investors. They want to get some really big money into Bitcoin, which is not surprising because they've been wrestling with regulators for a year or probably even more at this point to get a Bitcoin ETF listed on NASDAQ. So more stuff, more Bitcoin stuff from the Winklevoss twins. What do you think about it, Dustin?
It's interesting. I keep waiting on them to actually do something.
Yeah,
They
they
keep talking about ideas, and they have,
they say a lot of stuff, but they haven't actually launched anything yet.
yeah. I mean, it's great that they bought a lot of bitcoins. They bought. I think they put $10 million in early on. They
Yeah, don't
bought
they own
bitcoins,
like
and they
1% of the entire supply? So
yeah, a large amount, close to that, if not that. and and they've had their ETF they've been working on for a while now. They have Gemini, which is coming soon, and it's supposed to be a fully regulated exchange and all. I'm hoping that they will get something going soon. I mean, I don't, you said infamous, and I've heard that before. People act like they are something bad, but honestly, I've never saw anything really bad about those guys. They seem to be like two intelligent guys that have really great ideas and are ahead of the curve for the most part, even if they're a little slow to implement things.
Well, people hate the Winklevoss twins because they sued Mark Zuckerberg for Facebook, saying it was their idea first. So people are like, oh, they're just trying to steal Zuckerberg's thunder and get on his coattails and make some money off of him for not really doing anything. And people don't like him because of that.
But it was, I mean, suing him
And
for that
plus,
reason is not not a big deal if
plus
it's true.
the social network movie, the movie about Facebook,
Yeah.
it made the Winklevoss twins look like really huge douchebags.
Yeah, that is true. I did watch that, and it did, and it was not very
Yeah, I mean I
very
don't know
nice of
how they
them.
are in real life, but the movie made them look like huge douches, and so that of course influenced people's perceptions of the twins. But
Hmm.
here's I think they're it's pretty much guaranteed that they're going to launch. I just saw something that I looked over. They have a chief compliance officer hired already, chief security officer. Um, the chief compliance officer is Michael Baru. He's the former head of information security at Bridgewater Associates, which is a hedge fund. And then the chief
Hmm.
security officer is, I don't know how to say his name, C-E-M, Paya, and he was the head of information security at Airbnb. And they already have banking partnership, and this partnership allows dollars kept in the exchange to be protected by the FDIC, which
Yeah,
is the bank deposit insurance in the U.S. So if the bank loses your money, the customers get reimbursed.
right.
So it looks like they have everything pretty much set in stone. They're just um, waiting for a launch date,
Yeah, I think
and
they're testing at the moment.
yeah, probably doing a lot of testing. And um, since they're based in New York, there's just no doubt that they're trying to get ready to be fully compliant with the whole bit license thing that's getting ready to go into effect in the
Hmm.
next few months.
Yeah.
But since we since just a minute ago, we talked about Coinbase, do you think Gemini will get a big enough user base to be competitive with Coinbase's new exchange?
Um, Possibly. Uh, because they're going to draw a lot of attention when they do launch this exchange, and it seems that their ETF is actually becoming available soon. They've filed everything, and it's being processed, and it will be soon available. The Winkdex. So they definitely could. Uh,
Yeah, I think they definitely stand a chance to compete with Coinbase if they can get a lot of big institutional guys in. Not because I think the other exchanges like Coinbase and Bitstamp and Bitfinex, they've pretty much got the Bitcoin community. That's pretty much what the Bitcoin community uses. And I think in order for Gemini to get um, to a comparable level to what the Coinbase exchange claims it will have, uh, they'll have to get people from the outside, new investors to come in.
yeah, and you have to think about it like this too. Coinbase has raised over $100 million in funding. The Winklevoss twins just personally have more than that.
That's true. They're funding this whole thing out of pocket.
Right. They not only did they get a lot of money from the Facebook lawsuit. Uh, when I said they put $10 million into Bitcoin, they put $10 million into Bitcoin when it was before the big explosion upward in price. Um, that $10 million worth of Bitcoin is worth a whole lot more now.
Yeah.
Uh, So yeah, they've got the money to fund this out of their own pocket without needing anyone else.
Yes, they're definitely gonna have a lot of resources to work with, but
Mhm.
I hope it gets more mainstream people in because I personally just want the price to go up, but it'll it'll also be good for just the growth of Bitcoin in general. More people use it, that's always good. You'll get
Yeah.
the more mainstream it is, you'll have more wages paid in Bitcoin. There'll be more Bitcoin jobs, more
Hmm.
Bitcoin companies starting up. So
Yeah.
let's just hope Gemini doesn't become Mt. Gox.
I,
They're fully regulated, so
I really
um
can't.
they're fully regulated, so it's impossible for them to be bad. That's just impossible because the
Well,
government does so. But
well, the insurance is really the bigger thing for me than the regulation. I mean, that's really what, in my opinion, for an exchange should give people confidence is if they are insured. And and Coinbase's exchanges too. They're fully insured for every Bitcoin they have, and that's really, in my opinion, like who cares about regulation if the exchange can prove they have insurance on the Bitcoin, like that will cover it in case of say theft in any sort of or any case really, if they lose the Bitcoins. Yeah, that solves the whole issue of something bad happening and the exchange going insolvent. No, they just file with their insurance company.
yeah, that's always a really important thing to have. Like there's some kind of insurance for every single business,
Hmm.
and Bitcoin as it becomes more mainstream, it won't be any different. It's already getting that way, like you said
Yeah.
with Coinbase going getting private insurance on their customers' money, and that's another thing people uh, trash Bitcoin about is that they're not backed by the FDIC. If you lose your Bitcoin wallet, you don't get it back. If my bank loses my dollars, I get them back. Well, if you're really that worried about it, keep your money in Coinbase's multi-sig vault storage thing, and it's protected by an insurance company.
Hmm.
But anyways, let's move on from there. I think you wanted to say something about Bill Gates. I don't really know what's going on with him. It's something about some new thing he's doing.
Oh yeah. Well, he did an AMA today, which I'm sure a lot of people know because yeah, pretty much everyone was talking about it. It was on the front page of Reddit, and the front page of the Bitcoin subreddit. Um, and he mentioned once again that he was doing that he was using digital currency with his projects in Africa. But then once again, also emphasized that they're not using Bitcoin. It seems that while Bill Gates has came out before and said that he was supportive of Bitcoin, it was amazing. Um, he also is serious about thinking that Bitcoin is flawed and that other systems would be better. They're using M-Pesa, it seems, mostly, and are working on other things. I think that they still are. He hasn't completely stated that for sure. Um, but it seems like, from if you read the responses he's given on that before and now, that there's a good chance that his foundation or Microsoft or something in between are working on their own digital currency somehow to use for his what he's working on, which could be a good thing or a bad thing. Because someone on here had a really good comment about it, and that's what I've been trying to find, and I can't find that comment again. That it would be really, really good to use a currency other than Bitcoin in the case of, say, they want to do charity in Africa and they want to help people, make sure that the money that they give to people is actually being used by those people or it's actually being given to the population. Well, they make a currency that only they control and they back it up with however much cash they want and say, yes, this is redeemable for this much money with the sole purpose of giving to people, and then they can use a blockchain to track it and make sure it's not just going, into government officials' pockets and being spent that way.
Yeah,
Um,
which is what a lot of foreign aid which is what happens with a lot of foreign aid.
Right. So using the blockchain for that to just build a custom currency each time they do that, and then using it, tracking it on their own, one that they can completely control and make sure that none of that funny business goes on. That actually, in my opinion, would be a pretty interesting idea, and something that not many people could really implement or try, but Bill Gates certainly could. He's got the money to pay people to build that for him, and then test it out on a country.
But why exactly couldn't you do that with Bitcoin? Is it because there's no like real world identity associated with the addresses, so you don't really know who you're sending it to? Or...
Yeah, I think that this isn't what Bill Gates said. This is what somebody else commented and mentioned, and it made sense, and some other people were discussing it that they might be doing that in the future. Because yeah, you can't tell. Like you can give if you gave Bitcoin to a country basically or a group in a country and said, hey, this is to help this group of people. You don't know exactly who's actually going to end up with those Bitcoins. You don't know if it's going to go to the wrong people, and if it does, there's nothing you can do about it because once you give it to them, it's gone. His comments about it not being reversible, and he made some other comments that weren't exactly true, but Bitcoin's not reversible. You'd have to build a system on top of Bitcoin to make it reversible if you wanted to use it that way, or you could just build an altcoin of your own that's reversible. To do that with. That way, if they're controlling it, if they are controlling the blockchain for that one, because it's all backed by their own funds, then if someone tries to steal it or tries to use it or tries to take it from people, then they can just say no, and that's not legitimate, and change it.
Well, if Bill Gates is planning something like this, some kind of digital currency scheme, do you do you think he's gonna like which route do you think he's gonna take? Is he gonna go a whole different currency, or is he just gonna build like an app on top of the blockchain that maybe utilizes off-chain transactions and other features of the app that maybe it connects to your address to your real-world identity or something? Which one do you think he would probably gravitate towards?
Well, I mean, like I said, it seems they're using mostly M-Pesa right now, which is different currency. And my understanding is is kind of tied to local currency. And I don't think he'll use Bitcoin at least not for his foundation, because that was his criticism of Bitcoin isn't necessarily a criticism of Bitcoin in general. It's a criticism of Bitcoin for the purposes of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Like they work with getting poor people get banking services. Well, Bitcoin is useful for that. But the fact that if somebody makes a mistake and it can't be reversed, or if somebody does something fishy with it can't be reversed, that is a problem. That could be built on top of. But then there's the other issue of Bitcoin is volatile, and for people without a lot of money, that volatility can hurt a whole lot more. Of course, it hurts people in the U.S. or Europe or China whenever the price drops really quickly, and it's great when it goes up. But for someone in a third world country,
quickly too. Makes some
right?
people.
But if you're in a third world country, someone that's in a country that's very, very poor, it'd be hard for them to justify using Bitcoin, because if the money they're getting paid from someone else and drops to half its value by the time they use it, that could be devastating. Whatever they just got paid for might be all the money they have that they need to use, to feed their family, basically. That doesn't make it a very appealing option for banking for them.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you got to have a currency that you can use every day because you have to pay everyday expenses, and that's especially important in countries with weak currencies.
Yeah.
Even here in the U.S., I don't use Bitcoin when the price is being crazy, just
Yeah.
because I could. I don't know how far the price is going to go down. I don't know when it's going to shoot up again. So I don't want to. I don't want to risk losing a bunch of money, but I also don't want to miss out on the chance of making a bunch of money if the price shoots up again unexpectedly. So when that happens, I use dollars for everything. I use Bitcoin as much as I can for online purchases, but When it's really volatile, I just use dollars.
Hmm.
In a developing country with a really weak currency like Venezuela, I think is the country that is having, well, a lot of those South American countries are, but I think Venezuela is a really, really bad one. If they had to have a choice between their local currency or Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's being really volatile, and just for the sake of safety, they don't want to take the risk of potentially gaining a bunch of money in the volatility, and they just use their local currency. Well, then they're back to square one. They have a really bad currency that's not worth anything.
Right.
So that makes sense. But then there is another criticism Bill Gates made about Bitcoin, saying that it could be used to fund terrorism, which is what I've heard a lot of people say.
He didn't put it in exactly those terms. He said overall financial transactions will get cheaper using the work we do and Bitcoin related approaches. And then period, then making sure that it doesn't help terrorists is a challenge for all new technology. He didn't specifically like say Bitcoin is that, but kind of implied it. Um, but yeah, it doesn't really make sense because it doesn't matter if it's Bitcoin or USD or whatever. Terrorists use mostly USD at the moment. Um, who cares? Like that's not something you can stop. And Bitcoin would be a horrible choice for someone that doesn't want people to know who they are or where they are because it's so trackable, basically.
Yeah, and plus, if volatility is so bad that the poor unbanked people in the developing world can't use it as a daily driver, then why would terrorists use it? They can lose their value too. But
Yeah, but I think that more of the issue is that goes back to people thinking, and uh, I don't want to say that Bill Gates doesn't know this because I'm pretty sure he understands how Bitcoin works. But the Bitcoin is anonymous and like untraceable. But that's like I said, that's not true.
yeah,
Bitcoin is pseudonymous. I can never say that word right. Pseudonymous.
pseudonymous. I don't know.
Yeah, I know how to say it. I just can't say it right now. It's been a long day. Um, but yeah, it's not completely anonymous.
Yeah, it's only
And
anonymous if you take the proper precautions.
right, it's pretty hard to use it anonymously, truly.
Yeah,
Um, and you can always track where a coin has been and where it's going. You can read everything. It's not as anonymous as cash. That's really that's the anonymous way to use money is to have cash or gold or something like that, something that really can't be traced. It's just physical. Um, so yeah, I don't really understand why he even mentioned terrorism in his comment. Outside of that, I kind of got his two main points. Why they weren't using Bitcoin.
yeah. Well, he's obviously a supporter of Bitcoin, so it's not like he's saying uh, Bitcoin is going to fail. And
No.
the two problems he cited, they're very fixable. Like volatility, that's going to go away as long as adoption grows. That's going to go away as the network effect grows.
Yeah.
That's economics. And then the irreversibility of the transactions, yeah, that's a hardwired feature of Bitcoin. But like we were talking about earlier, you could very easily build an app that uses something. So my first thought was off-chain transactions, like a change tip.
Yeah.
Uh, and then you can have reversible transactions. And then you said it's a lot easier to build a reversible platform on top of something with irreversibility than it is to build something that's irreversible on top of a platform that's completely reversible.
Yeah, you can't really have a block like a true blockchain if it's reversible. That goes against what a blockchain is. A blockchain is a public ledger of every transaction that happened. You can't let one person or one group go back and change anything. You can't. That's backwards. You can't do that. But if you can build on top of a blockchain and have something that's off chain that can be perfectly reversible as long as it doesn't go back onto the chain. Like, as long as it stays in that system, you can reverse it all you want. Once they take it out of that system, sure, it'd be irreversible at that point, but you could put limits on that to make sure that it doesn't get out of it before everything is straightened out, everything is good. Maybe say give people a certain amount of time to say, oh, sorry, that's not what I meant to do, or it needs to be approved to go out of it. It definitely could be built on. You could build another currency on top of it to use for whatever purpose he wants,
Right.
or a
Well,
side chain. Side
yeah,
chain.
a supply chain, if that ever happens.
Don't know why it wouldn't. I mean, it's a sound idea.
It's Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Anything can happen or not happen in the Bitcoin world.
sure.
But anyways, this whole Bill Gates thing, it'll be interesting to see what he does, what he implements with his foundation. But let's change gears a little bit and talk about Braintree, because I don't really remember when this was announced. I think it was in the early fall maybe, but Braintree, a subsidiary of PayPal, announced that they would be, or I think PayPal like gave Braintree authorization or something, whatever. That's beside the point. They started integrating Bitcoin into their POS platform, because what they provide point of sale payment software. Basically, I think is what Braintree does,
Yeah.
and integrating Bitcoin into that software platform just it makes it to where any merchants who use Braintree just automatically are able to accept Bitcoin without doing any work. And everybody's really excited about that, mainly because not because of what Braintree is, but because Braintree is connected to PayPal. So that stirred up rumors of PayPal maybe starting to do something with Bitcoin soon. But here we are several months later, and Braintree is opening their a private beta for U.S. merchants. So they're starting to test their Bitcoin implementation, and if that's successful, maybe they'll go into a public beta before, and then do a full release, or maybe they'll just go straight into a full release. But either way, um, it's on the horizon. Whatever brick and mortar merchant uses Braintree, it, they're gonna have the capability to accept Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah, Braintree's yeah, not just for brick and mortar either. I mean, they have a lot of online companies behind them. They have basically a software platform. That's not just your basic payment processing. It has like a full development kit basically that comes with it, and that's why I guess it's such a big deal. And like we were talking about earlier, and you mentioned that Uber and Airbnb were customers of Braintree, which means that when this goes into effect, they'll be able to accept Bitcoin.
Yeah,
They've been waiting
and
on that
people
for a
have
while.
been wanting specifically those two companies to accept Bitcoin for
Mhm.
a long time. Uber, Lyft, and Airbnb. Because integrating Bitcoin with those companies is just like the ultimate decentralization.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Um, yeah, and then Braintree's CEO, Bill Reddy, it seems, is working really hard to make this happen quickly, and has stated before that he's trying to he's trying to help Bitcoin go mainstream. He seems to be a very big Bitcoin supporter. Um, so yeah, they're definitely helping.
Yeah, they're definitely helping by making it possible to buy things with Bitcoin at a brick and mortar store or whatever kind of clientele they have.
Mhm.
But what can they really do to actually get people to use Bitcoin? Because you can make it possible to use Bitcoin all you want, but what good is that if there's not a whole lot of people actually using it in physical locations?
I don't know really if they have the ability to do that unless they could build in incentives maybe. I don't know.
Discounts, something like that.
Right, because I mean, I'm sure right now they're charging for payment processing to merchants. They're charging a fee. Um, if they're handling all the processing, they could just kind of split that in half, where like the merchants are getting a higher percentage of the money than they would with a credit card, and the customers are paying less than they would with a credit card. Um, though that would be kind of iffy, really, because it's just kind of screwing the merchants over. You don't need to.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it really has to be. I don't think they can really make people use Bitcoin. It's hard for them to really give people an incentive to. Um, I think that has to come from the other side, or from the merchants themselves, or
Yeah,
from farther down the supply line, or farther up the supply line, however you want to look at it.
yeah, I agree with you there. That's why I brought that point up. But it's nothing negative against Braintree at all. They're definitely making an effort to bring at least bring the name Bitcoin into the mainstream.
Right.
Uh, and that's like you said, it's somebody else's responsibility to actually get them to use it because they're just payment services software company. They're not they're not a marketing firm or anything. But I want to go back to PayPal for a second because Braintree is a subsidiary of PayPal,
Hmm.
and the big hype around Braintree is that people view it as kind of like a precursor to PayPal actually integrating Bitcoin into their um, services. Is that coming anytime soon? I personally don't think it is. I think they're going to drag their feet a little bit, but what do you think?
I, I think there's a much better chance of it happening than you may think, simply because just like the CEO of Braintree is a big supporter of Bitcoin. Well, the president of PayPal is a big supporter of Bitcoin. So, you have the high-level executives in both of these companies that are, with Braintree being a subsidiary of PayPal, then the president of PayPal itself, it, it's likely that they're
Well,
going to
yeah,
do something with it. I
I'm
think
not
that.
saying that they'll never accept it, but to me, I get the vibe that when I saw that Braintree was accepting or was integrating Bitcoin and people started talking about PayPal, I kind of got the vibe that people thought it was imminent in the near future. But I think if PayPal does do something with Bitcoin, which I think they will, I think they'll have to at some point. But I don't think it's going to be like tomorrow or next month or next year or something. I think it's probably going to take a while.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see, I guess. You know, PayPal is PayPal's in a weird situation right now because Bitcoin has the potential to steal a lot of its thunder. Like, it is that intermediary, payment processor that is not exactly a bank, but it's not exactly, just cash. So, it's digital cash kind of in a way, but not completely. And then Bitcoin comes along and is a true digital currency. And so they have to integrate it, or else there's a good chance they'll lose out. They don't want one of the other payment processing companies that are being built around Bitcoin to grow up and get too large for them to overtake. They want to stay PayPal, basically. They want to stay the big payment processing company.
That's definitely true. We'll have to see how long it takes. I mean, like I said, I think no matter what, they're going to uh, start doing things with Bitcoin, and like I said, at some point they'll have to. So I
Mm-hmm.
agree with you there, but we'll just have to see how long it takes. I think PayPal is gonna. I don't think they're gonna like immediately jump on it. They're gonna be they're a really big mainstream company. So they're going to have to run it through their compliance teams, their lawyers, and all the other bureaucratic stuff they have.
Right.
And it's probably I don't see it being as fast as Braintree maybe or some other company that's closer to the Bitcoin space. But we'll have to see. Um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, they've been talking about it for over a year now, so we'll see how close they are. They might be getting closer. I mean, they first mentioned it in 2013 that they might be accepting it soon. Uh, like I said, they might have to. I mean, they will eventually if Bitcoin continues to grow, of course. I think really the big thing for PayPal is to figure out how to accept Bitcoin in a way that is still going to make them profit.
Yeah, and hopefully, however they decide to use Bitcoin, it'll make the process a lot faster because it takes it's a lot faster than using a bank, but it takes a long time to get access to your money on PayPal.
Mhm.
When I know there's things you can do to shorten that length, but still, I think the shortest you can get it is like a week maybe. But I've since I've been in the Bitcoin journalism space, like writing articles and things about Bitcoin, there's only one article that I ever wrote that I got paid in dollars and not Bitcoin, and it was through PayPal. And it was it took me 21 days to get access to $20,
Really?
and 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 PayPal took a $1 fee, so it took me 20 days to get access to $19. And this, needless to say, I stopped writing for this website. I wrote that one article and then never wrote for them again because the owner, for whatever reason, he owned a Bitcoin news website, but didn't want to pay his writers in Bitcoin. He wanted to pay them in PayPal. So after it took me almost a month to get my $19, I decided it just wasn't worth it. So hopefully, whatever PayPal decides to do with Bitcoin, it will decrease that time it takes to um, do whatever goes on behind the scenes, or authorizing transactions or whatever, and you can release their funds a little bit faster. That would be a huge improvement. That would help keep PayPal on top.
Yeah. I don't know much about that. I don't use PayPal a whole lot. I basically have only used it. I mean, I've used it recently, but only because I sold a domain on GoDaddy and they paid me in PayPal. um, and it didn't take me that long to get it, but then again, that was coming from GoDaddy, so I'm sure they have a different setup than some
Yeah,
individual guy owning a website.
I think
Um,
also I think a setback I had too was, like I said, I think it's possible to get that wait period down to like a few days, but
mm,
you have to verify a credit card, and I don't have a credit card. I only have a debit card, and they don't take that because
uh,
I'm pretty sure that's what I tried to do, and so I had to wait 21 days. But even then, that's a big disadvantage too,
yeah,
because there's lots of people who don't have credit cards, lots of people who don't even have debit cards, and
yeah.
hopefully whenever they start deciding to use Bitcoin, they can improve that aspect of their business. But anyways, moving on, I think this is going to be the last topic of the night, and it's just an interesting little survey that was conducted by um, a digital wealth manager called Hedgeable. They asked 300 members of the Bitcoin community, and the survey is still in progress. So you can actually um, in the article that will be this that we got I got this from, that will be in the description. At the bottom of this article, there's a link to the survey, I think. Yeah, there is. So it's still ongoing, but right now, what was reported on was 300 members. They were asked to give their predictions on the Bitcoin price for 1, 2, and 3 years into the future. And the results of this survey, um, and these are median estimates. So for 1 year, the median estimate based on the survey was $377. For 2 years, it was $600, and for 3 years, $1,453 is what the median average, their median estimate of the Bitcoin price will be according to the survey. So this suggests that Bitcoin users, traders, investors are still bullish, and they think the price is going to go up even after 2014 was a very bearish year. So, do you think these numbers are accurate, Dustin?
I think they're pretty. Yeah, I think they're pretty solid. Maybe a bit low, but I mean, I do think the price is going to continue up. It's pretty much went back to being on the previous trajectory that was on before it had the huge explosion in 2013. It just went way off the charts.
Yeah.
If you trace the trend it had been on before that, you get to where we are today, and it's pretty much bouncing up and down on that same trend now. And that would take it up to around these figures or even slightly higher. Um, but what I personally think will happen is that as Bitcoin grows, you know, as we talked about before with the network effect, it's going to hit, it'll hit critical mass eventually. Or Bitcoin will die and be replaced by something. Like it's going to be one of the two, in my opinion, before 3 years is up. And it will go really mainstream, in which case the price would seriously go up. Or someone will develop a better digital currency than Bitcoin, and it'll be replaced. And if someone develops something better than Bitcoin, then fine, so be it. And if they don't, then, I mean, with everyone integrating it the way they are right now, it's going to have to go mainstream before 3 years.
100% agree. I think these numbers are pretty good. I didn't really have any kind of guess for what it would be in the future. But after seeing this, I agree with it. Everybody who watches this podcast knows my opinions about the about 2014's year-long bear market. It was just a correction from the Mt. Gox bubble, which was caused by fraudulent activity from Mt. Gox. Anybody who watches the show regularly knows my opinions on this. So I'm 100% with you. I think the pre the pre-November 2013 price is where we should be after this correction is over. So I think we've already gone there. We went all the way down to like in the 170s and went back to 200, and that is the range that persisted before the huge spike. So I think we're back on the right track again, like you said, and again, like you said, the way it's going, there's nowhere but up with inevitably a little bit of turbulence in between. So yeah, I think for 3 years, 1453. I think I don't know. I think that could be anywhere between 1,000 or 2,000 in 3 years. That's in internet years. 3 years is pretty long, so a lot can happen there. That could make the price be a lot lower than 1,400 or a lot higher than 1,400. That's that's my really only thought on this survey.
Yeah, well, the way I kind of look at it is if in 3 years, like I said, I think it's going to go one of two directions. Either Bitcoin will truly hit mainstream, it'll hit critical mass, and it will go mainstream because so many companies are working to accept it. So many people are getting involved. The community base is growing and growing and growing. That it has to hit that point, or Bitcoin will be, outdone. Someone will have a genius idea to build a currency that's even better than Bitcoin, something that not something that's better than it, as in like a small group of people think it's better and other people disagree. Just something that's so much better, such an improvement that everyone's like, oh yeah, that is even better than Bitcoin. Great, it's a step forward, and that will kind of just step into its place, which is, in my opinion, the cool thing about digital currency, because you can do that. It'd be pretty easy to even build it so that you could transfer, bitcoins directly into a new currency if that were to happen. But yeah, I don't think the 14 one, I don't really like that number, because if it does go mainstream, it has to be higher than that. There's only so many bitcoins, and if it's mainstream, they have to be worth more than that individually. So yeah, it's either going to be higher or lower than that. It's either going to be much, much higher or be nothing, basically.
Yeah, I'm personally shooting for $1 million, and I'll have at least 100 Bitcoin by then. I'm gonna write a lot of articles in the next 3 years, and
Yeah,
Hopefully, I'll be able to retire off of it. But
yeah. I
unless you
don't.
have anything else you want to say about it, I'm gonna wrap it up.
I was gonna say that a million, I don't think will ever happen. I think.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think.
definitely not.
Well, actually, I take that back. That a million could happen in the case of Bitcoin going fully mainstream and the USD experiencing hyperinflation at the same time.
Yeah, but that's not the same as
Yeah, I know.
Bitcoin actually going to a million. I think,
But kinda, because I mean, they could be correlated.
well, if the $1 million is worth like $200 in today's money, then Bitcoin going to a million wouldn't really make much of a difference than where it's at right now.
True.
If Because if you could cash one Bitcoin out for $1 million, but then buy like $200 worth of stuff.
Well, yeah, I was thinking more of meeting in the middle there, like equivalent to say, ten to $100,000 today, but $1 million then. Whenever that
Yeah,
happens, that's just that's just an idea that's way out there and probably would never happen.
I think if Bitcoin goes to $1 million, um, not counting hyperinflation, it'll be, in 100 years where we're living in space and there's like a trillion, the human population is like a trillion people and they're all using Bitcoin. Then, yeah, but unfortunately, I won't be alive to cash in on that, which is
No,
really gonna suck. But
we'll
maybe,
see about that.
and that's if they figure out how to put me in a robot, then yeah, because I'm definitely gonna do that.
Yeah,
But
I'm a futurist. I think we all have a chance of living forever, but that's also crazy. So
but with that being said, I think I'm gonna wrap up the show now because I think we've been talking for about an hour now. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Um, Let us know in the comments what you thought about the news for the week. Uh, we'll be back on Wednesday. We're actually a day late. We had some scheduling issues, so it's going to be Thursday when most people watch it. So we'll be back on Wednesday, which I think is our normal time now. Um, in the meantime, thumbs up the video, leave your comments and thoughts, and read our articles on Coinbrief. Follow Coinbrief on Twitter at Coinbrief. You can follow me on Twitter at Evan Faggart. And see you next time, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.
yeah, see you guys later.